Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Generation Y Conservative Podcast. I'm glad that you could join us tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a range of different topics, including some things that are happening in the entertainment industry. Again, last week we actually had quite a few topics in relation to that and what was going on with politics in Hollywood and the Me Too movement and everything else that was going on. This week, we're going to be talking about the clash between the judge and Whoopi on The View. We're going to be talking about Chris Hardwick coming up again in his talks with AMC and being taken off of his show for one of his own Me Too moments as well for that. James Gunn being taken out of the Marvel industry with Disney and what's going on there and why it's going on. We're also going to get to one of the videos from the Young Turks, Hassan or something like that. I don't really know, but we'll get to him and dissect his video as our main topic tonight on why he's wrong and how he's misleading people in regards to the types of statistics that he's throwing out and the ideas that he's promoting. We're going to talk about all these topics and more. This is the Generation Y Conservative Podcast. All right, I'm glad that you guys could join me tonight. If you're watching right now, you might be watching on Facebook Live, which we do usually every Thursday at 9:30. This week we're doing it at 9:30 on Friday night because my anniversary was yesterday. Happy anniversary, Leslie. Also, if you're watching live right now, do me a favor, head over to the Facebook page, hit like on the Generation Y Conservative page, and then hit the get notifications so you know when we go live. And if you're tuned into the show right now, you can actually get involved and comment on the live stream, and I will try to interact with you. If you have something to say, I'll bring it up. If you want to argue with me, you're more than welcome to. I can silence it. Doesn't really matter to me. I can also engage with you as well. You can also follow along with me on Twitter at Gen Y Conservative without the E on the end. Usually I'm pretty busy tweeting back and forth with some of the morning shows I listen to while I'm working, so that's fun to get interactive on that as well. Also, if you are a fan of the show, you can actually find the HD version in both video and audio form and the final version on YouTube, where I highly recommend that you go there and subscribe to the channel, the Generation Y Conservative, and then also hit the bell to get notifications on that, because we do a range of different things besides a podcast, and we're going to keep on adding to that when time permits for different areas that I want to explore. If you're interested in listening to the audio-only version of the podcast, you can always find it on KLRN Internet Radio on Sundays from 3 to 6 p.m. And they have also put me onto iTunes, iHeartRadio, and the Google Play Store. So any platform that you listen to podcasts on, just search for the Generation Y Conservative Podcast and follow along with that on there, especially if you don't want to see this face. I keep on telling you, if you don't want to see this face, you don't have to. You can actually just listen to the audio, and that's okay with me. So, tonight, one of the first topics we're actually going to get into here is Chris Hardwick. We've actually been talking about him for a couple weeks now. He is actually the host of the Talking Dead, Talking Bad, and a couple other shows on AMC, including his own show. He also started up the Nerdist empire as well. I don't think he has too much to do with that anymore, but he was actually accused in kind of this whole Me Too movement within the last couple weeks from an ex-girlfriend, as he is just into the depths of his new marriage and everything else to Lydia Hearst. And he just seems like one of the most genuine, outgoing, cool guys that's on TV, that's just real with the people. And I've been saying over and over again, I just don't see it. Sometimes things hit you out of left field and you don't see it, like Bill Cosby, for instance, okay? Couldn't have seen that coming. He was America's father and everything. Who would have seen that coming? But it's people like this that I believe I just didn't see this coming. And a lot of people were saying the same thing, and they were calling for AMC to actually do an investigation into the topic and find out if he actually did sexually abuse his ex-girlfriend. Well, this week, Chris Hardwick was actually reinstated on AMC and all of his shows, and they said that they did an investigation and there was no evidence to put against this guy that he actually was guilty of what he was being accused of. Well, our favorite person who doesn't really have a life anymore, Kathy Griffin, actually lashed out at Chris Hardwick being reinstated on The Talking Dead. Said AMC announced that Hardwick would return to his hosting duties following an investigation into Chloe Dykstra's revealing essay about this previous relationship. Griffin took to social media and shared the story with the caption, "F this," but she actually spelled it out. And this is what his new wife, Lydia Hearst, actually replied to her with. "There is a reason for due process. Also, this has nothing to do with you. The truth prevailed. Chris is innocent and a good man. Try looking at facts and spreading love, compassion, and understanding. If you can't, then go project your upset and nasty comments somewhere else." Yeah, so they did the investigation, and actually the truth prevailed for once. In the midst of all these Me Too movement things, what was going on is we've moved our culture. We have shifted our justice system to a justice of a jury by the peers, right? And what we're doing is you're guilty until proven innocent. And it's hard to prove innocence without the evidence being there for either side, because you can throw something out against anyone out there. And to try to prove your innocence is to pull things out of air. It doesn't make any sense. But to prove guilt by the party that's actually accusing you, there has to be evidence there. And that's exactly what we've been trying to shoot for, is to get this whole movement going in the direction of, okay, everybody has the right to be heard. You don't have the right to be believed. In order to be believed, the evidence has to be there, an investigation has to take place, and this person has to be proven guilty. Otherwise, you are just absolutely throwing it against the wall and allowing people's lives to be ruined if they're actually innocent of these crimes. And it's horrible to have these witch hunts for people if they turn out to be innocent, because in the day and age of social media, people hide behind their computer screens, don't put their name, don't put their face out there, and they accuse people of these things and throw out dirty things. We have people doxing people, going after their businesses and trying to get people fired from their businesses based on false accusations or things that they said that happen to be their opinion that wasn't associated with the business in the first place. Last week, we actually talked about a woman who was fired from her manager position at a PetSense or something like that because she said something about breastfeeding mothers. It had nothing to do with PetSense, but people got pissed off about it. Everybody has to be outraged about something. And they went after this woman and went after her business and actually got her fired from the business for one of her opinions. In this case, you have to understand, we're going to talk a little bit later about kind of this backlash and how the left has been using this type of strategy against the right, and how the right now has used that strategy going back. I don't necessarily agree with that at all, but in the case of James Gunn, which we're going to get to in just a second here, and what happens is now you've started this mudslinging back and forth where the only way for each side to feel that they have a win is to get down in the mud and do the same thing. And it's just going to get worse and worse and devolve into the ugliness of culture going against each other, and that doesn't make sense anymore. You have to rise above that. But if we've gotten to a point where the left's strategy is winning out in all of these situations where doing this type of thing actually yields results of people getting fired or shamed publicly by things, then of course the only way to fight back in a lot of people's minds is to actually go and do the same type of strategy back to them. And that's a dangerous road to go down, because it's just going to get worse and worse. And if that's the devolved strategy right now, the only way to make it worse for people is to go worse, okay? So there's no high road anymore that anyone's taking, because there's no results yielded by taking the high road. And that's a very scary thing. I think that we're going down a very bad road that's going to cause mayhem. And social media is a tool. It's a tool for all of us to communicate with each other and do these types of things, but it's a tool that can be used for good and bad. And I think over the last couple of years, we've been seeing a lot of that, and how it can actually be used for evil purposes, like going after people's livelihoods and shaming them into a position where they can't even get a job anymore. So it's just a scary thing. In regards to Kathy Griffin and what's going on in this case, though, what we actually have here is Kathy Griffin is upset that Chris Hardwick, after an investigation played out, is upset that he was found innocent and is allowed to return to his TV shows. So what is Kathy Griffin actually saying here? She's saying that she wishes this was true, in essence, okay? She wishes that he was a sexual abuser based on the information at hand that the ex-girlfriend had laid out there for everyone. And she wanted to ruin this guy's livelihood, no matter what the outcome was. There was an investigation that took place, and they found him innocent. And the results were not good enough for her. Well, that's what the justice system is there for. And this wasn't even going to the justice system. The AMC, the network itself, did their own investigation and found that this isn't even something worth pursuing because it's not there. The evidence isn't there. We're going to continue to see these kinds of stories in and out every single day because the Me Too movement has yielded certainly predators like Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey. Bill Cosby obviously was kind of the start of that before the hashtag Me Too and everything. But if you look at Hollywood, it's just been falling like dominoes all over the place. And once again, I bring up the point. Name me, and I have my comments open right here. If you could be a conservative watching right now, you could be a liberal watching right now. Name me any conservative actor, producer, or any other type of conservative person in Hollywood that has fallen to the Me Too movement. This has been a liberal disease in Hollywood. And on top of that, as I've brought up before as well, just prior, and I think it was within 2 months' time of the Me Too, hashtag Me Too actually taking off, Vice President Mike Pence was being criticized all over media for only having dinner with his wife present if in the company of another female or anything like that. He would not have business meetings or lunches or dinners or anything like that alone with another woman unless it was within the company of other people, because he didn't want to fall into a trap of either maybe he had a weak sense about himself and felt that he could fall into a trap of cheating with him, or maybe he just felt like in cases like Chris Hardwick right here that maybe even if he didn't do it, he would be falsely accused of that type of thing. And he was called a Christian extremist and everything else under the sun. A couple months later, hashtag Me Too takes off. Guess who hasn't come out, along with any other conservative stars or anything like that, as one of the perpetrators or sexual deviants in the hashtag Me Too movement? Mike Pence has not been mentioned at all within that. So who's really laughing now? Certainly those of us that supported Mike Pence through it, and you're not hearing too much from the people that criticized him, like the women on The View. I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. I'm sorry. It was a simple story. I blew it up. So we just got done talking about the Chris Hardwick situation and what was going on with him. And it was actually leading into a story that I also have tonight in regards to James Gunn. Now, if you're familiar with James Gunn, he is the genius, I would say, behind Guardians of the Galaxy and the Marvel projects like that. And he did a fantastic job. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy just took the Marvel movies to the next step that they needed to go to. And you can actually see a lot of the influence from that to basically give a kick in the butt to the Thor franchise in the Marvel universe with Thor Ragnarok, because they took a lot of pieces from the success of Guardians of the Galaxy and moved it into the Thor movies as well. Well, James Gunn lost his job at Disney. And what happened was, it says here, according to the Daily Wire, James Gunn is the director of Guardians of the Galaxy. He was slated to not only fill out the rest of that series, but perhaps take over the entire Marvel franchise after the final Avengers film, which is due to come out next year. Now he's out of a job over decade-old disgusting tweets regarding rape, monkeys ejaculating on children, and similarly horrifying material. The tweets are purely loathsome. But according to, who is this? Ben Shapiro, actually. It says that doesn't mean that he should have lost his job at Disney. Gunn says that his tweets were outrageous and taboo, adding, "As I have discussed publicly many times, as I've developed as a person, so has my work and my humor." And he said if everyone in Hollywood lost their jobs for saying loathsome things, there would be a lot of people in Hollywood about to lose their jobs. Virtually every major comedian, for starters. With that said, there's really two questions to unpack here. First, should Disney have fired Gunn? Second, were people right to call for Gunn's head? So this kind of unpacks into what we were just talking about in regards to Chris Hardwick and the witch hunt that was after him, even after the fact of an investigation that went into that. So let me answer these questions myself, because I think Ben Shapiro and I were in a lot of agreements on this. I actually posted that Gunn shouldn't have been fired. A lot of actors that were involved with him were upset at the fact that he was fired. But here's the thing. Did these tweets come out as he was working for Disney? Disney hired him after the fact of these tweets. So they could have gone back. They could have looked through his history. They could have had multiple people looking into this and found this and never hired him in the first place. That falls on Disney's shoulders, okay? They did hire him. They hired him to do these projects. He is now was a representative of Disney and should never have been putting out tweets like this during his employment with Disney. But that's not what he actually did, okay? Gunn even apologized after the fact of these tweets before this even hit the news. This actually, a couple years ago, he came out and said that he had some disgusting tweets that he wasn't so proud of. He didn't delete them, though. Okay, maybe he should have deleted them, but the fact of the matter is he actually went back and course corrected with that. Here's how the whole situation actually played out, though. He criticized another actor who came out and said that people on the left should actually try listening to Ben Shapiro, okay? And that actor was viciously attacked, and Gunn was one of the people that brought up tweets from the past that Ben Shapiro wrote and said, I can't believe you're supporting this type of person. Well, this goes to the fact of what we were just talking about in regards to Chris Hardwick and this getting down low and dirty and equal with the other side and slinging mud back and forth. The right is now taking this strategy, which I don't agree with, of getting down and actually using the same type of strategies that the left is using to go after the left itself, right? The left is always bringing up these old tweets and stuff like James Gunn did to attack Ben Shapiro by throwing him at this actor who agreed with just taking a listen to Ben Shapiro to open your mind a little bit to politics. Open your mind and understand the conversation on the other side, okay? I mean, Gunn is probably the type of person on the left who calls Ben Shapiro, a Jewish guy, a Nazi. I mean, that's how uninformed a lot of the people are that actually attack Ben Shapiro. In this case, what actually happened was he told this actor who's on, I forget, Duplass, or I believe is his name is, that's on the League, which is a fantastic show. It's so hilarious, especially if you play in any fantasy football leagues. He's in that. He's one of the creators of the show and everything. He was attacked for just saying maybe you should take a listen to Ben Shapiro based on some old tweets. Well, some people on the right came right back and showed that Gunn had some disgusting tweets of his own in the past. And what ended up happening? They went after Disney, his employer, to get him fired. And he actually did get fired. I don't agree with that. I don't think he should have been fired. The guy already apologized for these tweets in the past and has course corrected his life. People make mistakes. And especially if you're able to stand up and be a man or be a woman, if that's your case and everything, and acknowledge your mistakes in the past and come clean about them and move forward from there. I mean, that's basically the message of Christianity that we should be following. If you're a born-again Christian, you should be taking that pivot point in your life and saying, I have made some bad choices in the past, but I'm choosing to go in a new direction. That has nothing to do with Christianity in this case, but he chose a different path for his life and acknowledged that these tweets were disgusting. So he should be given a second chance. In life, people should be given a lot of chances, okay? No one is perfect. And unless you're out there just outright killing people, okay? People have even given killers a second chance. Look at some of these sanctuary cities and them releasing the guy that killed Kate Stein out in the boardwalk out there. I mean, you want to talk about second chances for the wrong people, maybe? Not in this case. It was some disgusting tweets, and they let him go from Disney. Gunn is a fantastic producer or director, whatever his involvement was there with the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to live up to the same standards that he put out there, that's for sure. And I just disagree that he should have been fired in this case. Again, now we have the right taking on the left's tactics, and it's only going to devolve into further mayhem as we move forward in interacting with each other, because it's just going to drive a wedge further in society between any groups that are out that are infighting with each other, between Republicans and Democrats, the rich and the poor, the black and the white. the haves and have-nots. That's all we keep on doing, is driving a wedge further and further into society and all these different sects of our culture and everything. Okay, moving on. If you are a fan of The View, I'm sorry. But we do pick out bits and pieces here and there of The View and what was actually going on with it. Within the last week, Judge Pirro, I think is how you say her name? Pirro? Yeah, Pirro. I'm sorry. Judge Pirro, who's on the Fox network, actually went on to promote her book on The View, and it was pretty interesting. So at the end of this interview, she actually got into a little spat back and forth between herself and Whoopi Goldberg. So let's take a view of The View. Let's take a look.
Here's my question for you, because you talk about
I am not, Judge.
Nobody is.
Oh, yeah.
Did you just point at me?
Yes.
Listen, I don't have Trump derangement. Let me tell you what I have.
Okay.
I have I'm tired of people starting a conversation with Mexicans or liars and rapists. I'm tired of people starting a conversation about this country. Listen, I'm 62 years old. There have been a lot of people in office that I didn't agree with, but I have never, ever seen anything like this. I've never seen anybody whip up such hate. I've never seen anybody be so dismissive. And clearly you don't watch the show, so you don't know that I don't suffer from that. What I suffer from is the inability to figure out how to fix this. That's my issue. But one of the things that you talk about a lot, and I'm curious about it, is the deep state. How long has the deep state been there, and who's running it?
Well, I want to answer your question, because you had
you a question.
You had your opening statement, which was how horrible it is that Donald Trump is talking about all of these people.
I'm sorry,
you know what
that's
I think
what you
is horrible?
said. You said,
Whoopi, you know what's horrible?
That
when people who shouldn't
okay.
be here end up murdering the children of American citizens.
You know what's horrible? When the president of the United States whips up people to beat the hell out of people.
No.
Say goodbye.
Let me go. I'm done.
Thank you to Judge Jeanine Pirro. Her book, Liars, Thinkers, and Liberals, is out now. We will be right back.
Okay, let's start from the beginning of this video. First of all, besides the actual ending of the spat between the two, Whoopi Goldberg is actually perpetrating or projecting a lie that's been going on since the general election, and even since the primaries in this case, in regards to how Mexicans are portrayed by Donald Trump and Trump supporters and everything else. That she basically said that Trump comes right out and says that Mexicans are rapists and killers, okay? That is not the case. Some are, though, okay? We have to acknowledge this as a fact in order to move forward with the conversation. If you're unable on the left to acknowledge that within the flood of people that come across our borders illegally, there are going to be criminals, and by the very sense that they're entering our country illegally makes them all criminals, but that there's further criminal activity involved with these people, at least some here and there, okay, maybe many, maybe just a few. If you are unable to acknowledge that, we are unable to move forward with a constructive conversation in this country, because you are absolutely wrong and the facts work against you, okay? They are by the very definition illegally entering and breaking the law right off the back. But you also have rapists and killers as well. Kate Steinle, I think is her name, out in California. That was a case where an illegal immigrant shot and killed her. You have cases where people who are in this country illegally, driving around illegally without a driver's license, because they are obviously can't apply for one legally to get one, have gotten into drunken car crashes and killed families of American citizens that are here. That is also killing people, because you shouldn't have been there in the first place. There's murders all the time. There's MS-13 gang members that are killing people in the most vicious ways, literally tearing women and children apart limb by limb and cutting them up into pieces after sexually abusing them. So if you're unable to acknowledge that this is actually happening in this country, there's no way of having a conversation with your delusional mindset in that case, okay? But we can move forward with the conversation saying that those people exist and that there's good people that exist. There are good people that exist that come into this country to make a better life for themselves and their families, and even in some cases for their families back home. It makes sense. Those people do exist as well. But to go out there and say that Donald Trump and his supporters are saying that all Mexicans fall into the category of rapists and killers is absolutely false. That is not what has been said. It is not what is being said, and it is not what will ever be said in finality with everyone that's talking about this subject matter. That is not even a question of what we're talking about. We're just saying that these people exist within the crowds. And if we are not documenting them as they come across the border and having our justice system and criminal justice system in place in order to track these individuals when a crime happens, if a crime happens and you take fingerprints, where in the database are you going to find those fingerprints? Because they're here illegally, so there's no way of even tracking them into our system. And then you're certainly never going to find out, okay, so you have a fingerprint, where are you going to go? Where are you going to look for that person? In the vicinity? That's about all you can do. If they ship themselves to another state in the country, you're never going to know. You never know where they're moving, who they're interacting with, because they don't exist here. I mean, technically they do exist here, but they're not in the system in order to track down. And that's a very dangerous system and game to play, because you are setting up failure all across the board and injustices. If you think it's an injustice that they're not allowed to be in the country just willy-nilly and come across the border and not be that, if you have a feeling that we should have open borders and that people should be able to come and go as they please, that doesn't work with the type of system. It boggles my mind. It boggles my mind that we have people that out of both sides of their mouth are saying two completely opposing ideas. In one sense, what we've been hearing for years from the liberals and Democrats and everything is free education, free health care. The government should be paying for everything. Everything is a right to have, right? In order to do that, everybody knows, including the people on the left, that you have to raise the taxes on everyone. You have to raise taxes to well over 50%. It has to at least start at 50% of your wealth, the money that you make, going to the government to distribute as they see fit in order to support different things that you feel are rights. In order to do that, you have to tax the people that are here. But then you're also saying that we should be supporting the people that illegally come into this country. So along with that, out of the other side of your mouth, you're talking about opening up the borders and that there shouldn't be borders. Borders confine humanity, and humanity should have a free flow and free loving type of thing going wherever the heck they want and everything. So we flood the country with a bunch of people that we can't document, that we can't track, that we don't have numbers for, and we're supposed to support these people based on imaginary numbers of how many are here and how much money they need to support them, and base our tax system on that? It doesn't make any sense. Those two ideas conflict completely with each other. But that's the idea that they're shooting for. This Ocasio-Cortez and her socialist mentality and everything. She can't even understand what the heck is going on in the Middle East, let alone what's going on in her own country, and how the socialist system that most people want to implement is completely contrary to the types of goals that the left wants to implement with policies in our country. It doesn't make any sense at all. What were we talking about? The View? So, anyway, in regards to Whoopi, she goes off on Judge Pirro and is talking all this stuff. And so we have them going back and forth, and I guess Whoopi was told that she has Trump derangement syndrome, and she goes off on it, okay? And she gets really upset about it, and then she gets to the point where she gets so angry, she tells the judge to go, leave, bye-bye, end of conversation, which is very typical if you listen to the show. It's one of the main points I make, that if you're having a conversation or an argument with a liberal, the best way to know that you're winning is when they shut down the conversation and will not conversate and back and forth with you. Or they start calling you names, or they bring up past presidents, or find excuses, or start name calling. These are all things that you should look out for, because if they're happening, keep your calm, keep your cool, because you're winning the conversation. Just use facts and statistics, and you're going to end up being the higher road person. Now, in this case, what actually ended up happening, according to the judge, Whoopi got off the stage, went off. There's only one way to exit the stage, off to the back set. Whoopi stood at the end of the stairs, and the judge came down. Whoopi was in her way. Whoopi went off on her, told her to get the F out of the building. F you, get the F out of the building. And then the view came back on. So here's what Whoopi had to say when they actually came back on then.
So, welcome back. So you saw me do something I very rarely do. I very rarely lose my cool, and I'm not proud of it. I don't like it. But I also don't like being accused of being hysterical, because that's one of the things I try not to be on this show. So, have a great day.
So one of the things that she doesn't do is become hysterical. She literally just got hysterical, said F you, get the F out of the building. So she doesn't do that? I mean, this is typical for Whoopi, as a matter of fact. Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar are the two screaming examples of how ABC Network specifically, okay, and I'm not calling for their firing here, but I'm asking ABC Network to take a look in the mirror at themselves, who canceled Roseanne after a tweet that was a disgusting tweet. Granted, it was a disgusting tweet, had nothing to do with her show or what was going on, and she was fired. Last Man Standing, top ratings. It was one of the best shows on the ABC network, and because it had a conservative bent to the humor and everything, I think they waited a couple years and was hoping that was going to go downhill. Instead, it kept on climbing in the ratings and everything. And at the peak of its performance, they cancel it. But at the same time, they look at the hate from Roseanne and everything else. They don't look anywhere past the people that they hire to sit on the table of The View and actually see the hatred and vile comments that come out of Whoopi and Joy on any given day in regards to ripping into anyone that they disagree with. It doesn't make any sense. And this is just the latest in a string of examples of what these women do. And once again, like I always say, there's a reason why it's called The View and not Views. It's very singular, if you didn't catch that point. Okay, Pennsylvania. According to FaithWire, a Pennsylvania town bans a family from hosting Bible study in their home. It says here, a religious liberty law firm is hit back at a Pennsylvania town after it allegedly banned Bible studies and other religious activities from taking place on property owned by a local couple. Not in public square. The Independence Law Center has brought a case against Sewickley Heights Borough, which is located about 15 miles from Pittsburgh. The lawsuit alleges that the town ordered Scott and Terry Fedoroff to cease holding religious activities in their own home as part of a zoning restriction, according to PA Family. The suit argues that the town's zoning restriction violates the couple's First Amendment rights to the free exercise of their religion. Freedom of religion, not from religion. Government should not target religious activities for punishment, particularly when similar secular activities are permitted, said Jeremy Semek, senior counsel for the Independence Law Center. In America, no government can categorically ban people from assembling to worship on one's own property. I don't think you can ban them from gathering to worship even on public property. You could be upset about it, but once again, like I said, it's freedom of worship, or freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. So this is just the latest in a string of little cases here and there that I bring you. One of the most recent ones I think I brought in regards to a Christian law firm that was fighting things was a World War I memorial that was paid for by the mothers of the soldiers that didn't return home from World War I. It was erected in a town, and until this year, I know World War I, what year was that, Les? Was that 2 years ago? It was, I don't remember how old I was during World War I, but it's been there for a little while, obviously. And now they're threatening to tear it down, and the religious law firm is actually trying to save this and at least be able to move it to a private property where it will be respected. Because people are offended now when you drive past a church, when you see a cross in any given situation, because that's going to cause you to melt down and automatically convert you into a Christian, apparently. It's ridiculous. How about this? This is one of my favorite stories this week, actually. over the last couple years, I forget when this exactly started happening, there was there is an ongoing situation in Flint, Michigan with the water supply system and how it's gross. It's nasty water that's coming through and everything. What's in the water out there? I forget. Besides it just being polluted and everything that's in it. Maybe people are answering me on that. Kira joined. What's up, Kira? One of my conservative ladies from down at CPAC. Anyway, in regards to Flint, Michigan, what you have is a disgusting water source out there, and I don't know of anybody on the right or the left that's saying that this is a good situation. I don't think there's really any argument over the fact that the water's disgusting, something needs to be done. The local government or state government in that case is failing its citizens within that area to rightly provide them with clean water. But in regards to Flint, Michigan, what you're having is a conversation from the left that's always been coming that water is a right. Okay, you could take that angle. You may feel that you have a right to water, okay? But you don't have a right to the access or push and service of water being provided to you. If that's really the angle that you want to take, you do not have the right to say that people are going to be forced to provide a water treatment center that does the work of treating the water and then forcing it through the pipelines into your house and providing you with that water. If you want to say that you have a right to water, we can have that argument. I don't really know how to approach that argument because water is an essential part of life and everything. And I think that you should have access to water, but that doesn't mean that the access has to be pushed and provided to you. But that feeds into a whole other conversation. You have the left that's arguing over the right to water, right? That you have this right to water itself. Well, just next door to us in Pennsylvania here, New Jersey, according to Fox News, sorry liberals, I have to pull a source somehow, New Jersey could tax tap water under a Democratic lawmaker's plan. It says a New Jersey state senator has introduced legislation that would levy a tax on tap water in an effort to fix the state's aging pipes. State Senator Bob Smith, a Democrat, suggested adding a user fee on water consumption and water diversion in his proposed legislation. The tax would add 10 cents for every 1,000 gallons of water used in a home, which would amount to an increase of approximately $32 per year to the average water bill. Okay, there's a lot more. If you want to go to Fox News and read that article, you're more than welcome to do so. But let's take apart what's going on in Flint, Michigan and apply it to this situation. If you have a right to water, taxes are seen as at least a semi-burden on those that have low to no income, okay? So if you are taxing the access to water, the people that you are always saying that you're fighting for, those that are stricken in poverty or poor, are going to be taxed just for the access to the water that you say is a right anyway. My point being, you have to make up your mind on this, okay? 10 cents on every 1,000 gallons, let's be honest, is not that much money, okay? But if you're not making any money, or you're stretching your dollar for the next pack of cigarettes, sorry, that's an assumption, then that 10 cents per every 1,000 gallons is something to you, okay? That's kind of the right or the conservative approach to everything. My money is my money. If you're going to throw out something in regards to an access, allow me to pay for a certain amount or something. In this case, I don't know. I think that these are two conflicting liberal ideas, just like the ideas between opening up the border and providing free access to everything as rights that I was talking about before. We're kind of seeing a pattern here, if you're not noticing that tonight, that liberal ideas conflict with each other. They never play out properly. That's why we always talk about how you could enjoy a socialist system and say that we need a socialist system here in the United States, but when you point to Sweden or Norway as examples, which aren't good examples of socialism, by the way, because it's not exactly that type of system, then we can point to Venezuela, where people are eating zoo animals. as a failing socialist system. Okay, it just doesn't make sense. You can't separate the two and say, well, it would work here. No, as a matter of fact, if you're looking at something like Venezuela or another small country like Norway, where the average population maybe within one of those countries is 5 million people as opposed to a couple 100 million people, you can't apply those small samples to a large population as a flip of the system and just expect results to come and help out everyone. If the national healthcare system is failing people and killing people or leading to the deaths of people over in Britain after having the system for a really long time, you would think that they would have hammered out the kinks. Now people can't even get basic surgery for hemorrhoids at this point because they're trying to cut costs on everything. And you really think that we could just flip the system of a capitalist system here in the United States to a socialist system and expect to yield good and productive results? Doesn't make any sense. It's not going to happen. Water, New Jersey water. New Jersey water is pretty scary to begin with anyway, though. Let's be honest. Anything, you cross the border into New Jersey, I mean, you're taking your life into your hands anyway as it is. Let's just be honest with you. You're either going to lose money at the casinos or get a flat tire. That's what always happens to us. Okay. Another one, according to the Daily Wire, millennials go full millennial after baseball team advertises Millennial Night. This is one of my favorite stories here, and they fully owned it, which is fantastic. It says, according to Ash Shao, well, that's quite the name, of the Daily Wire, says, what's the most millennial thing a person can do? Get outraged over something as insignificant as a theme night at a baseball stadium, probably. And that's exactly what members from the particular age group born sometime between the 1980s and early 2000s did after one of Alabama's minor league baseball teams held a millennial-themed night at the ballpark, according to Fox News. In a perhaps misguided attempt to bring younger fans to the stadium, the team has come up with about 70 different promotions being offered during their home games, including an outdoor night and military Wednesdays. But one of these promotions, Millennial Night, enraged the outraged generation. So I'll throw this tweet up in the final version of the podcast over here, but it says the team must be the Montgomery Biscuits. Okay, so it says Millennial Night, free stuff, participation ribbons, selfie stations, and napping areas. It says this is the tweet, want free things without doing much work? Well, you're in luck. Riverwalk Stadium will be millennial friendly on Saturday, July 21st with a participation ribbon giveaway just for showing up, napping and selfie stations along with lots of avocados. They followed that up with a response. And if you've been following the podcast now, you've seen over the last week Scarlett Johansson back down from the film that she was acting in as a transgender because transgender people and allies got offended that she would dare to play a transgender role, because obviously you would want to go and give that role to that transgender actor or actress. I guess it really doesn't matter. Oh yeah, there's no one noteworthy to throw into a movie that would pull that kind of star power like Scarlett Johansson would. But what ended up happening, she backed out of the film. My wife's favorite guy, Henry Cavill, who plays Superman, he had to apologize because in the era of Me Too, he's afraid to go out on dates or approach women and flirt with them because even a simple flirt will land you in hot water. And the left got outraged over it and said he was basically making light of the Me Too movement. No, he's absolutely right. I wouldn't. Thank God I'm married. There's more and more reasons to be married all the time. Either you find a chick with a little surprise on her, or you end up in a situation where you're flirting with the wrong person. You get blamed under the hashtag Me Too movement and everything. But these people keep on backing down and apologizing for all the things. He had nothing to apologize for. He was absolutely right. Scarlett Johansson had nothing to apologize for because she's a freaking actress. That's what she does. She acts like somebody else. She's not becoming that part. Doesn't make any dang sense. Anyway, Montgomery Biscuits. I keep on getting sidetracked. I'm sorry, and I'm getting heated up here. They responded. It's not the kind of response that you thought I was going to say, though, which is cowtailing and apologizing for their tweet. They doubled down, which is exactly what I'm looking for in a company nowadays. They said, in another tweet, quoting their original tweet, "Offended? Feel free to fight your battles in real life and visit us at Riverwalk Stadium. Any millennials that actually come by during office hours before next Saturday and submit a valid complaint in person to our Millennial Night think tank may get a free ticket or two." They said, the vice president of fan engagement, Mike Murphy, told Fox News, 80% of people in our front office are millennials themselves, the people that came up with the freaking promotion, myself included, and we're just having fun with some of the cliches that people point out about being millennials. They clearly should have included a cry closet, this writer wrote. Absolutely. So before I go on here, I think we're getting some, let me see here. Okay. What's this one? Oh my word! What prevents heart attacks? Like, I might need a pill or two right now. I'm about to go off on another tangent here. This, according to the Daily Mail, "I deserve human decency," said a plus-size woman who posed in a bikini in Times Square. Says she was grossly fetishized by male passerbys, revealing the sick comments made about her body. Curvy blogger Anna O'Brien, 33, from Cleveland, Ohio, is best known on social media as @glitter&lasers, the name of her website. In April, she made headlines after revealing she was told to, quote, cover up while posing for a bikini snap in a Las Vegas hotel. If you're watching the live stream right now, I'm saving you the vision and not putting the image up for you. But if you're watching the YouTube version, you're getting an eyeful right now. After her story went viral, Anna was approached by a German news channel to do a photo shoot, and she suggested Times Square. The blogger says she was prepared for people to make rude comments about her size and weight, but was shocked at the sexual nature of many people's words. So it says, "Yesterday I did the scariest thing I had ever done in my 30 plus years," she wrote alongside the photo, which shows her wearing a pink and black patterned bikini. Sorry, I need a Tums. It's coming up on me. I stood in Times Square in bikini and posed for a photo shoot. In the beginning, I felt really overwhelmed, not because I was mocked, but because I was so extremely sexualized by a few men who were watching. Oh, honey. She went on to explain that the behavior of the male passerby was made all the more shocking by the fact that she was standing next to two nearly nude women covered only with body paint who seemed to receive none of the crude yelling and screaming that she did. But to me, a plus woman in a swimsuit, the things that were said were so graphic, it made me sick to my stomach. One man said he felt justified in saying what he did because, quote, plus women don't know they're effable. Okay. Tears began to well up, the blogger recalled. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Okay. Anna further detailed some of the grossly sexual comments she received in a piece for Cosmopolitan, revealing that one man claimed he wanted to suck on them tasty toes, while another told her to twerk for the camera, baby. Show them how that A clap. Tears began to well up, the blogger recalled. I was prepared to be pointed at, shamed, and called fat. I didn't expect to be fetishized. Okay. Number one, I don't care the size you are of a woman. People are beautiful no matter what. There's beauty in everyone. Not going to deny that there. But there is clearly something wrong with this whole story, okay? This woman is a plus-size woman, okay? She went specifically, when asked to do a bikini shoot, okay, she suggested New York, Times Square, okay? Because she felt she could get on camera gross comments made about her weight, that she would be fat shamed in public. Instead, what happened was the exact opposite, and guys were saying kind of freaky things to her, sexually hitting on her, and she gets mad about that. Where the heck is the middle ground for you, lady? Okay? This is exactly why, if you're single, you're not finding anyone, okay? Did you want people to ignore you? Because if you wanted people to ignore you, you wouldn't have chosen Times Square, right? You went there specifically looking for attention. You didn't get the attention that you wanted, you got the exact opposite attention, and that still pissed you off. That's the mentality of today's leftist feminazis as well, okay? You have to be outraged over whatever it is, okay? You expected to be fat shamed, instead you were sexualized, and they wanted you. And that enrages you too. What do you want? Please, make a list. Make a grocery list of what you want, okay? Do you want to be pursued by men? Or did you expect to be fat shamed? Whatever it is, you didn't get what you thought you were getting. You got what you maybe wanted. I don't know, but you were pissed off either way. So the point is, what was your point? That's the point, is the point, right? The point is the point. So you went there seeking as much attention as possible from the mass amount of crowds in New York City. You expected to be pursued with one way of comments or the other, right? If you didn't want that and you wanted to be ignored as a person based on your body weight and everything, you wouldn't have picked Times Square. Fail number one in this case. You expected to be fat shamed. Instead, you were sexualized. Fail number two. Okay? So things aren't exactly going your way right now. All right? And here is a guy. You got to give him credit. He wanted to suck on them toes. He just wanted to suck on them toes. And when's the last time that your toes were sucked on? Maybe this is a partner for you. And you just pushed him away. That's all I'm saying. Okay. As if that didn't show the pits of humanity right now, let's take a look at another love story. And let me know what you think in the comment section.
I not only love him for a sexual attraction, I mean, we're not talking about fetish here. I love him as a mate. You make me feel so alive, 1001 Nacht. My days are brighter when I gaze upon your handsome face.
Amy's main lover is a humble fairground ride called 1001 Nacht.
You can see him a little bit there, just the top of him.
The front. My heart's just going boom, boom, boom.
Wow, he is really tall.
Yes, he is. I'm thinking, oh geez, you know what I'm thinking about.
I don't know what you're thinking about. Please do tell me. Before we go on, here's what's happening. This is a love story about people that have a apparent condition where they fantasize and fall in love with inanimate objects. Does this fall as an inanimate object since it moves? It's an actual ride? I don't know. No? Okay. My producer's saying no. So, so it's an actual condition. So let's go on and find out a little bit more about the sexual nature of falling in love with an amusement park ride.
You smell good. God, you smell so good.
An OS person talks to their beloved object, and the object communicates back by telepathy.
They communicate back through telepathy, these objects that have no mind or blood source or anything else like that, no soul, telepathy. Now, if you find yourself laughing at this story, how dare you? How dare you? Okay? Because love is love. And at this point, we've seen so many different cases of love. I don't know where in the LGBTQP, NRA, NBA, NFL, MLB plus area this fits into. Roller coaster loving, I guess. But love is love, and we can't judge anymore. Mike's watching the podcast right now. He knows we don't assume things. And if you're laughing at that, you need to find some help. It's you that needs the help. But that was fun. All right. We've talked a lot this year in regards to gun rights because of names of ridiculous students down south that shall not be named on the show anymore unless they make the news as being idiots. And their fight for gun control. Well, a federal appeals court rules that Hawaii's ban on open carry permits is unconstitutional. It says, according to the Daily Mail, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is typically one of the most liberal levels of the justice system, ruled 2-1 that officials violated the Second Amendment. Said state couldn't deny George Young a permit to openly carry a loaded gun, and reverses lower court ruling that said amendment applied only to guns at home. Hawaii currently only gives open carry permits to law enforcement and security. Welcome to America. If you need to know the extent to which you have a right to bear arms, look no further than sitting down and reading a very short thing in what we like to call the U.S. Constitution. And in there, it's not a hard read. There's multiple things that you can read. There's a lot of good stuff you can read in the Constitution. It's what separates all of our country from every other country that's out there. Read through it, see what the government is allowed to do to you, and realize that Hawaii and places like Chicago, Baltimore, these places that have active bans on guns and firearms and everything are completely unconstitutional. Now, this is a case that needs to be made and used as precedent across the country in regards to the finality of the Constitution and how it bears its weight on our constitutional right to arm ourselves as citizens. I don't think it's a huge story that doesn't need a lot of explaining. The Constitution grants us the opportunity to bear arms. And one of the most liberal court levels just ruled that that is the case. So even though I don't have much to say on this, there's a lot to unpack there because this is something that should have widespreading implications for it. Here's something interesting here. Surveillance footage shows that one of President Obama's senior officials followed a woman around a DC metro station and took pictures up her skirt with his cell phone. William Mendoza was the director of the White House Initiative on American Indian and Alaska Native Education under Obama. So obviously he probably worked very closely with Elizabeth Warren on those things. The married father of 3 was caught carrying out the vile act on July 5th of 2016 while Obama was in office. He pleaded guilty to attempted voyeurism and resigned from his job. The video shows Mendoza following the woman in a skirt at Union Station Metro. Now, I'm going to get to a portion of the video to show you. Actually, we'll bring that up right now here. Of Mendoza going around the train station at the exact moment where he's going up the escalator and has his phone that he's taking those pictures. So if you're watching right now, you see Mendoza was just circled. That girl right there that he's following around and he's taking pictures up her skirt and everything. This video is much longer. You can find this on the Daily Mail and everything by going to their news article. But this guy followed her around all over. Before the gates, he wound around certain platforms, following her around within 3 feet of her the whole time. It's almost like he was trying to be close enough just to smell her, and that's the kind of creep that he is and everything. But here's a question for you tonight. Please feel free to comment in the sections here. If this was a Republican in the Trump administration or any Republican administration, not only would he be called to be fired, but wouldn't the person in the administration, the president at the time, be called to disavow their association with that person or call them out publicly and shame them in regards to not agreeing with them or anything. Because if that's the case, if the left does that to the right, shouldn't Obama come out and say, it's this video footage that came out that happened during my administration is disgusting. I choose to distance myself from this guy because he's done some really bad things, and obviously he's a deranged individual who needs counseling, right? Here's the point. I don't think he needs to do that, okay? He should be held to the same standard as the left holds the Republican side, though. If they hold the Republican side to that, they should need to be holding their own leaders as accountable as what they're projecting out right now. That's just my point on that. But that guy's pretty disgusting, so that's Mendoza right there. Are we getting comments? Inanimate. Okay, we're going to take a step back here on the definition of inanimate objects. Not alive, especially not in the manner of animals and humans, showing no sign of life, lifeless. So this roller coaster ride, or it's not a roller coaster ride, but this amusement park ride was actually inanimate. Let's see here. Ronald Reagan's liberal son complains that Trump's base hates Democrats so much that they'd rather pick Putin for president instead. Ron Reagan said of Trump and his base that he seems to hate the same people that they hate. Said Trump's base voters would elect Vladimir Putin as president of the United States over virtually anybody with a D after their name. Trump's approval rating has been remarkably consistent despite ups and downs of the Russia probe. What the Daily Mail chooses to lead out, because despite me going to them as a source outside of America for more unbiased opinions, they do have a left lean to them. In regards to what they're saying about the approval rating being remarkably consistently ticking upwards, by the way. Last I checked, his approval rating was 45%. Maybe my producer could look at the latest stats and see what his newest numbers are. But his support has actually been going up. It says Trump's GOP support hit 88% following his controversial Putin summit. Nothing? Ron Reagan, the son of the 40th president, told a TV audience that President Trump supporters are so fanatical they would sooner elect Vladimir Putin than a Democrat. Reagan, the liberal son of his namesake, who is revered by conservatives and by Trump, blasted Trump for speaking incoherent gibberish in his speeches. And although his father struck deals at summits with the Soviets even as he denounced their aggression, the younger Reagan blasted the way Trump's base appears to be softening on Russia while faulting their antipathy for Democrats. He said specifically, if you think that about Trump's base, they do like Putin. If you look at the polls, Putin's popularity has gone way up, he said on Hardball with Chris Matthews, MSNBC. The most important thing to them is that Trump seems to hate the same people that they hate. If it was left up, just up to Trump's base, they would elect Vladimir Putin as president of the United States over virtually anybody with a D after their name, and I'm not kidding you. Well, let me point out a couple different things here. Number one, we actually addressed this last week on the podcast, not specifically with Ronnie here, which his father must be rolling over in his grave that he didn't properly raise this kid. Obviously didn't get spanked enough. But last week we were talking about how I'm lost. Last week we were talking about the Russia, okay, and what was going on with Russia and who was actually blasting Russia. We went back and listened to sound clips of Obama debating Mitt Romney during the general election debate and saying, Mitt, the 80s called and they want their policies back. Russia isn't a threat anymore. You're acting as if Russia has is more of a threat than Al-Qaeda. This just simply isn't the case, right? So you have him saying that Russia wasn't a threat. You had Hillary Clinton going over with what she thought said reset in Russian, a stupid little button that you would have done better with a Staples That Was Easy button going over there, and trying to reset their relationship with Russia. But the second that Trump tries to go over and settle things with Russia, everything is backflipped now. All the positions have reversed. Whereas the Republicans were saying that Russia is a threat, trying to push this narrative that the Democrats need to be careful. The Russians certainly hacked into the unsecured server of Hillary Clinton and got a lot of information off of that, by the way, as well. you also had the Democrats defending and trying to secure relations with Russia at the time. Now that Trump's trying to do it, he's an evil person. He's horrible. There's nothing worse than him working with Russia, trying to resolve any type of peace talks and economic security between the two nations and everything. This is ridiculous, okay? If you can acknowledge that Russia is a threat, you can also actively work on securing relations with them that can bring them into the 21st century as an ally and doing the right things. But when you're actively going after them and saying that they're not a threat, when clearly they are, and trying to secure a relationship, you're setting yourself up to be taken advantage of. Trump, right now, is actively saying that Russia is a problem, that they've meddled in the elections, that Putin has basically bought off other countries and everything, and that they're paying him for these economic things that are just enslaving their economies, and that Putin is a threat, while also trying to make peace with Putin. There's a big difference there. Poor Ronald Reagan. Doesn't make any sense. What do we got going on here? So Ronald Reagan is obviously rolling over in his grave. Speaking of Trump, though, like him or hate him, some numbers came out this week in regards to a trade war. Now, one of the things that we've been talking about on the podcast over the last couple of weeks is the tariff situation that the U.S. and Trump specifically has been trying to put on China and all these other countries in regards to trying to strong arm them into positions. And one of the predictions that we made was that this is a threat to try and get all these other countries in line with the U.S. to make things more fair between countries as the very definition of free trade. Okay? So what you had is Trump going after these countries saying, listen, what you're doing is completely unfair. You're not paying your fair share of the things. And tariffs have, first of all, tariffs is another fancier word for taxes in regards to other countries going in and out of our country, okay? But things aren't fair. Businesses in the U.S. have levied taxes or used their influence in Washington to pursue politicians that will actively levy taxes on other countries that are providing goods, the same type of goods that these businesses provide here in the U.S. that are being squashed by the competition because of lower prices, by pursuing these politicians to levy higher tariffs on those products coming into our country to make it a little bit more fair for the competition within our own country for our own products that are made here in the United States. That is a tool. That is a weapon that is used in regards to outside business and everything. The idea of free trade is the ability to open up the markets between states, between countries and everything else to get the best possible prices, best possible materials, best possible products and services from anyone that's involved in any of these industries to the consumers themselves. And if you start getting tariffs involved and import policies that work against certain countries, they backfire, okay? Because think about it this way. One of the times we use the example of China. If you levy a higher tariff on China on their incoming goods, which they send us a lot, everything's made in China for crying out loud. If you levy higher tariffs on them, those products, first of all, the countries or the producers are not just paying those tariffs and going, well, I guess we're getting screwed on this one. What ends up happening is the consumer that buys those products ends up paying a higher price for that product. So when you levy a higher tariff on something coming into our country, your politicians are screwing you over, okay? Because you're ending up paying more for the product and it's not hurting the business. It's not hurting the country that it's coming from. In the end, you will see a trickle down in regards to the volume that's coming from other countries because the consumer itself here in the United States is going to say, this is becoming unaffordable. I'm paying 20% taxes on washers and dryers, upwards of 40% in taxes on washers and dryers coming from China and everything. I can't afford that. I mean, washers and dryers are over $1,000 as it is. And then you're adding that kind of tax on top of it. It doesn't make sense. So as the consumer here in the United States pays higher prices, the market takes a hit. When the market takes a hit, the stock market reacts, and it's not going to react in a good way. So the stock market starts going down. When the stock market starts going down, then everyone that's tied up in the stock markets with their own stocks or their retirement plans and everything else, those things start taking a hit. In the end, everyone's getting hurt by higher tariffs, which again is another name for a tax. Doesn't make any sense. But I kept on saying last week specifically, or the week before that, that even though I hate people saying and coming out with these ideas that, oh, Trump knows what he's doing and he's like some sort of crazy genius and using these things and this is going to be the result in the end, I did say, don't like listening to that, but that I feel like the ultimate plan here is to levy these higher taxes to create a free trade, fair situation between countries where you lower the tariffs so that they're equal with each other, okay? Here's the breaking news from Unbiased America. It came out on July 25th. Trump secures concessions from Europe to avoid the trade war. The European Union says that it has agreed to a series of concessions that would avoid a costly trade war with the U.S. The EU has agreed to increase liquefied natural gas imports from the United States. So now, over the last couple of years, we have become exporters of our resources, our fuel sources, okay? They're going to increase imports from our country, lower tariffs, align regulatory standards on medical products, and import more U.S. soybeans. What's the other news that just came out recently? In regards to farmer subsidies and the Trump administration trying to help out farmers with a massive subsidy that goes out to them to help them get through this type of trade war that we're going through with other countries. So they're going to import more of our agriculture to help out our farmers as well. The end goal, Trump stated in one of his tweets the other day, is a no tariff situation where every country eliminates tariffs that we deal with. And that is by far one of the most conservative things I have ever seen any president utter. And here's the thing about Trump. Again, I'm not a big fan of the guy personally, but this president has taken a list of promises, campaign promises, and like a good business person has gone through them like he was accountable to the shareholders of a company, which in this case would be the citizens of the United States, and checked those promises off and done them like no other president has ever done, probably in the history of the United States. Great things have been done. Calvin Coolidge is one of my favorite presidents. He cut taxes by 60%. The first year he got into office. And then the next year, he cut them by another 50%. That is one of the coolest conservative things I've ever seen done. This, just the mention of the fact that he's going to do this, or is that his end goal is to eliminate tariffs completely between countries that we deal with, is by far one of the most conservative things I've heard a president say. And all the power to him. If he puts it out there as a promise to the American people, at this point, going through that list of what he's doing, I actually feel pretty confident that he's going to pursue and try to get that actually done. So kudos to Trump. Some weeks you can praise him. Some weeks you can look at his tweets and go, what the heck were you thinking? Why are you doing this? You're making our side look bad. In this case, liberals probably hate this because they love their taxes. In this case, it's one of the best freaking things I've ever seen a president do, and I couldn't be happier with it. And I really hope that he pursues a no tariff situation. Okay, here's another guy that we talk about pretty regularly on the program because he is just a screaming example of the liberal left hosts on late night. Trevor Noah of Comedy Central's The Tonight Show, okay? Trevor Noah has had his moments. What I liked about him with the Tomi Lahren interview is he allowed herself to pummel herself, right? He just threw out basic questions that any outspoken conservative that puts themselves into the limelight should have been able to answer, but she has this faux outrage that she lives on. It's all about the outrage and not about the solutions. So when he did that, and then he went out to dinner with her afterwards and actually formed what seemed to be like a kind of semi-friendship and at least respect between the two of them, I thought that was actually kind of cool. But Trevor Noah is refusing to apologize for a joke that was dug up from his past of comedy stand-up that he made about Aboriginal women. So before we actually get to what he said about that apology, let's take a look at the actual joke itself.
all women of every race can be beautiful. Yeah. And I know some of you are sitting there now going, oh, Trevor, yeah, but I've never seen a beautiful Aborigine. Yeah, but you know what you say? You say yet. That's what you say. Yet. Because you haven't seen all of them, right? And plus, it's not always about looks. Yeah. Maybe Aborigine women do special things. Yes. Maybe they'll just like jump on top of you and just be like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Number one, that joke was hilarious, okay? Like, the producer, do you know the name of that Aboriginal instrument?
Didgeridoo.
A didgeridoo, yeah. So that was obviously in regards to male genitalia. It was a little over the top, but it was kind of cool. It's funny. It was actually really funny. I thought it was hilarious. But then on top of that, the other thing is, how many Aboriginal people are actually watching that skit? Not many, if any. So they're not going to see it anyway. It's kind of like when you make fun of the Amish or the Mennonites. They're not going to see it either. That's why Raymond the Amish comic gets away with everything he talks about. It's just funny stuff. He's doing stand-up comedy. Guess what? When you take a risk in stand-up comedy, that is the best kind of jokes that you can do. If you're placating to the audience's mentality, which I accuse these late night hosts of doing all the time, you're not being courageous by pushing out Trump jokes to an audience of all liberal people. They're going to agree with you. They're going to applaud and clap and laugh at the sign that lights up above your head that they're supposed to do so, like good little soldiers and everything, that they're pre-programmed to actually follow the sign and do what the sign says and applaud for you. They're going to do that anyway. It's not courageous. It's actually cowardice to make those kinds of jokes. If you really want to step up and be a comedian and make something funny, or actually take a stance and make a name for yourself, you should be every now and then taking an opportunity to step outside of that little echo chamber box that you're sitting in right there and actually compliment the president for something. Try going on YouTube right now. Hit the trending button on YouTube and see what kind of videos show up. I can guarantee you that Stephen Colbert and Seth Green? Seth Green? I don't know. Seth Meyers, and James Corbin, any of those people, but especially Stephen Colbert, any of his trending videos are all Trump bashing. That is what he has become. He took the opportunity in his career during the Colbert Report on the Comedy Central to bash both sides, and it was hilarious. People on both sides loved him. But when you become an angry, bitter person that spends all your time placating to what's getting you the numbers, you're not courageous anymore. In this case with Trevor Noah, these jokes were actually really funny. You have to take the opportunity to laugh at not only yourself sometimes, which I make fun of myself all the time. I find that those to be the funniest jokes, and all my jokes, my producer will tell you, all my jokes are the funniest jokes. So, the fact of the matter is, if you're not laughing at yourself and able to laugh at simple, funny things about other people, like, you're going to go through life being a miserable person if you have no sense of humor in your life, okay? So that was the video that was in question in regards to what he was saying. The comedian was criticized for calling Aboriginal women unattractive in a comedy skit, but he didn't say that, right, producer? He said yet. Yet, right? U.S. comedian Trevor Noah refused to apologize for his comments on Thursday. The comedian made the joke in 2013, and footage has since resurfaced online. Why do you think that is? I can tell you right now, I bet you it was someone on the left that dug up some of his old stuff and tried to make an issue of it, okay? And in this case, I'm sure that the left is actually eating their own because they don't like these types of jokes. They don't like women being made fun of. He is set to kick off an Australian tour next month, but many have called for a boycott. So here's the thing, Trevor Noah, you're not going to find this too often, okay? I don't even know if you'll ever end up seeing this video. I don't really care. Here's the thing. This conservative host of this podcast right now, I support you, okay? I don't know if I am ever going to see that on your side from the type of late night hosts that you are, the ones that are made famous like Stephen Colbert and everything. But here's what is going on. Your jokes right there were actually funny, okay? You're a comedian. At that point in time, you were doing stand-up. It's what you were supposed to do. Here's the other thing. You shouldn't have to apologize at all. It was a joke, and the joke was funny, like I said. But at the same time, maybe this is an opportunity for you and all the other late night hosts like yourself that try comedy skits and everything on the programs to see and take a look in the mirror that this is exactly what happens every single day with people on the right. That you can't make a joke. Conservatives are not allowed to have a sense of humor. You're not allowed to have an opinion. You're not allowed to practice your faith out in public. You're not allowed to talk about religion or politics, because if you do, you're going to be shamed publicly, or they're going to go after your job and try to get you fired. And then they ask you to apologize for it. So I agree with you. You shouldn't have to apologize. And what you did was funny. But maybe you take this opportunity to see as a microcosm of something that happened to yourself for once, that this is exactly the kind of stuff that your side is calling for all the time, and maybe use it as an example to back off a little bit and help support the other side when they actually need it, and show support like I'm showing you support right now. What do we got here? Gary Spencer said, I agree about the taking of risk with jokes. If you don't make enemies, you didn't stand for anything. And if you don't stand for anything, you fall for everything, right? Isn't that what it is? Okay. Speaking of late night hosts, Samantha Bee is another one. She was the one that said really disgusting things about Ivanka Trump the other week. And hey, guess what? She still has a job, because the left always gets to keep their job when they say disgusting things. But she just came out with a kind of a parody mocking of Dana Loesch of the NRA. She was the NRA spokesperson, with a kind of semi-ad of her own. So let's take a look at that real quick and then talk about it afterwards.
NRA, you go on your little screen with your scary shark eyes to tell people to make out with their guns or whatever. You make a narrative out of false context and fearmonger your followers into thinking they're in a civil war. You use words like freedom, liberty, late night hosts, Hitler. You have no chill. Then you're caught associating yourself with one Russian agent and you just disappear? What gives? I dare you to make a comment. I challenge you to tell me how it's American for the NRA to take money from foreign agents who want to see our democracy burn. And also, Dana, I dare you to get bangs. Change it up. You do want to be a star, right? You're the NRA's spokesperson, so start spoking. Your time is running out. The clock starts now. Your move. Orange, you glad I didn't say banana? We'll be right back.
Okay, so that was her skit, kind of doing a little parody of Dana Loesch's NRA videos that she puts out all the time, which are, to be honest with you, fantastic. Dana Loesch is the perfect person to be a spokesperson for the NRA. Here's what I have to say about Samantha Bee. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was really funny, especially the last part there, making fun of Dana Loesch with her hourglass thing about time's up and everything. The whole thing was really funny, and I have to give her credit for that. What I do have a problem with, though, is, again, the hypocrisy of the left, okay? Within that, they were showing pictures of this Russia agent that got caught over here in the U.S. with pictures with Wayne LaPierre, the president of the NRA. I don't know if you've ever been out in public and been around any celebrity or famous person or business leader or anything that you felt maybe you had the opportunity to get the picture with them. But if a random person walks up and just wants a picture with you, that's all it takes. And this is supposed to be evidence that the NRA is colluding with Russia. They also mentioned financing by Russia through the NRA and everything. What kind of filter do you have to look through every single donation that comes in and say, oh, well look at where this is coming from right now. We can't accept this kind of donation. You know how many donations are made to the NRA? If Samantha Bee was being a truly honest comedian, and in this case, I guess she considers herself a semi-journalist of some sort, going after the news and everything. Where was she when the Clinton Foundation was accepting all the monies that they were from foreign countries like Saudi Arabia? And there was one Middle Eastern country, maybe Mike, if he's still watching, can talk about that too or bring it up to me. But the Clinton Foundation accepted money in a pay-for-play scheme to allow a soccer player that was banned from coming into the U.S. because of criminal accusations against him. That country made a donation to the Clinton Foundation, and somehow magically the State Department, under Hillary Clinton's control, got a visa to that soccer player to come into the U.S. Where was Samantha Bee when that kind of stuff happened? Where was she criticizing the Clinton Foundation, where only 10% of the donations that were made to the Clinton Foundation actually went to worldly causes to try and help out people? The rest was spent on salaries, specifically salaries for Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and guess what? Chelsea Clinton, who didn't do much of anything at all, but was accepting all that money as her salary in millions of dollars to be one of the head people of an organization that was just funneling money to different countries and doing pay-for-play schemes. If Samantha Bee was honest, she would attack both of these things, which is exactly like what I was talking about with in regards to Stephen Colbert when he used to be on the Colbert Report. That kind of stuff was funny. Acknowledge your own side's mistakes. That's all I'm asking for. Okay. This is the big one. This is the one that I've actually been looking forward to doing all night. Hassan Piker, or Picker, I don't really know. He went after Kylie Jenner as the source material for this video, and I just got so disgusted with the whole thing. This guy is on the Young Turks and represents the Young Turks in his own videos and everything, and one of my friends posted this as an example of why the capitalist system is a failure. I am going to take this video apart piece by piece and go through it with you and show exactly why this guy is spreading false information and has an agenda that's clearly driven into a socialist realm with no facts to back himself up and pure assumptions and emotion that guide him, and ends up guiding his followers, which he outright says, and in a braggadocious manner he has a lot of, like Kylie Jenner, is guiding them into misguided principles that, if we have a society that takes off in the direction that he wants us to, will be their demise, like Venezuela. I don't know about you. I don't want to be eating zoo animals in order to survive, or eating out of trash bags and everything. So let's start with the first video and actually see what he says, and we'll take it piece by piece.
Hi, our current economic system is broken.
Kylie Jenner has landed herself on the cover of Forbes magazine.
I'm a positive guy, and I think this could potentially be a big wake-up call for a lot of people that capitalism has faults.
It's a $900 million net worth right now.
Now, before people attack me, I don't mind Kylie Jenner. I think she's nice. Good on her for gaming the system. I mean, she turned $1,000 lip fillers into a makeup brand that generates over $8 million a year. That's undeniably smart, but it's also not the whole story. This isn't a critique of the Kardashians either. This is a critique of the system we live under, a system that so many people believe is fair, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
Hassan here is obviously a relatable person to you because he's wearing a tie-dye shirt and a hemp necklace and has his hair slicked back and is just an everyday type of guy. And he's talking about Kylie Jenner, who is the focus of this video, as someone who has reached mega success financially, as being the example of why the capitalist system is broken. I happen to believe the exact opposite, which is she is a shining example, though I hate, or I don't hate, I don't hate the Kardashians. I don't like the Kardashians. I think that they have been a cancer on society as far as their show and what their influence has been and everything else. But to take what you are and become a brand and make money doing it is exactly the type of environment that capitalism promotes. Okay? So let's go on a little bit further here.
The article says that with continued growth next year, she's set to become the youngest self-made billionaire ever, male or female, surpassing Mark Zuckerberg.
As I will prove to you with this story, there's no such thing as a self-made billionaire. No one has ever truly generated that kind of wealth on their own without any help from others. But this is especially true for Kylie and her 7-person makeup brand team, which I will use to demonstrate the flagrant inefficiencies of unfettered capitalism. But first, let's start with how. Kylie Jenner is 22 years old and has amassed 110 million followers on Instagram, which I'll admit, is hard. Not everyone has that many followers. Me. It's not quite as hard, however, when your mother is self-promotional wizard Kris Jenner, who early on launched herself and her family into superstardom by identifying a bottomless demand for voyeuristic consumption, and then leveraged her daughter Kim Kardashian's exponential popularity growth in the aftermath of a famous leaked sex tape that Kris Jenner allegedly self-released.
Let's take a step back real quick before I make one of my main points on this and go back to the 7-person makeup team that Kylie Jenner surrounds herself with. He goes on to say right after that this is a classic example of unfettered capitalism and what it creates, but then doesn't really go on to explain what that kind of effect has on that 7-person team. Well, here's the thing. That is a classic example of the success of a capitalist system, because Kylie Jenner, as the brand herself and creating a company, has now created jobs for people. Okay? And I can guarantee you that those people are probably making a decent sum of money themselves. Okay? Beyond that, what we're going to start to see in this video is a relentless attacking by Hassan on people that were obviously thrown into this video as primary attack dummies to go after, just to make examples of. And in this case, the first thing that he does is goes after Kim Kardashian and her leaked sex tape that happened, which is what launched the Kardashians into their fame, besides the O.J. Simpson trial and their father and what got involved with that. I don't really think that that was the launching of their family into a successful future or anything. I really do think that it was the sex tape with Kim Kardashian and everything that really launched them into the reality TV series and everything. But right off the bat, this guy is going after Kim Kardashian in personal attacks to make a point on the capitalist system by demeaning the value of a person. Okay, that's example number 1 of doing that. Let's go on a little bit further, though.
It also helps tremendously that Kylie has appeared on the most popular reality TV show franchise since she was 12, but it doesn't end there. Next up, intergenerational wealth. Now, Kylie turned a modest $250,000 into a company that brings in $8 million a year. But compare that statement to this familiar one.
It has not been easy for me. And, you know, I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million.
This is the reality of intergenerational wealth. It gives a select few at the top all of the freedom to try and fail on any given venture they set their eyes on.
And there you have it. Obviously, the main focus of using Kylie Jenner as the prime example of this video was actually to try and get to the fact that Trump is the perfect example of unfettered capitalism and the reason why capitalism fails. He was always the target in this video to go after. They just needed a couple steps to get there, to get you primed and ready to go after the true dummy to attack with the dog in this video. Now, intergenerational wealth, okay? What is wrong with intergenerational wealth? What we're seeing here with Hassan is a prime example of jealousy and bitterness, okay? Who cares? How does it affect you if your neighbor has become a millionaire after generations of his family running a business and passing that down to them? What does it matter to you? It has no bearing on your daily life what someone else is making in this country at all, okay? So instead, they choose to go after Donald Trump, the Kardashians, and everything for intergenerational wealth. Now, the thing that people always make fun of is Trump saying that he had a modest loan from his father for $1 million and he had a hard time with it. Listen, I get it. I understand that this seems like a real big joke to everyone and everything, that how could you be so flippant about getting $1 million loan and saying that it was hard for you? Well, let me tell you something. The biggest risk takers in America, because of the opportunity, the launching pad of capitalism in our country, is this ability to launch yourself further than any other economic system out there would allow you to, by granting you this opportunity to not only succeed, but to fail. Okay? And what happened with Donald Trump before achieving presidency in our country is he was given a loan of $1 million. Now, you can laugh at that as intergenerational wealth and everything, and the opportunity of a spoiled brat growing up who was given this opportunity to use that money. But guess what? What they're not talking about here, what Hassan is failing to recognize, is that could have gone the exact opposite direction. He could have lost that whole $1 million loan and done some really stupid things, gone out on some of his father's yacht or bought his own yacht, done a bunch of cocaine and filled himself up with a bunch of babes on the boat and everything else, and sunk it by hitting some rocks after doing some really stupid stuff. But guess what? He didn't. Trump has had many failures throughout his businesses, and people will point to that all the time. But guess what? Along with those failures, he's also had successes, and those successes have funded him further to go and pursue other ventures, some of which he failed in. But that's exactly why and what makes America great, even though we're trying to make it great again. Is this opportunity, this platform that allows you to build up wealth and pursue your dreams and become more than you ever thought you could or ever possibly could achieve in any other country out there. If you want to go off of this guy's idea of a perfect system, which he would tell you and promote is a socialist type of system, that kind of system is always capped, okay? Where do true innovations come from in the world? The biggest innovations, the Elon Musks, the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, the name the inventors. I was watching a Tesla documentary last night, for crying out loud, and Thomas Edison and Westinghouse. All those people achieved these types of things and made these inventions here in America because it gave this prime opportunity to do so, to become that person that you wanted to be, to achieve business success, and also take these enormous risks with your business. And it's not just yourself. When you're in a position like Trump or Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or any of these other people, Elon Musk right now, and you achieve that kind of business opportunity, you have thousands, if not more, tens of thousands of employees that you're also responsible for, okay? So if you take a risk as a boxer at Amazon, okay, you take a risk at an outside business venture and you fail on your own by trying to come up with some widget, okay, you lost some stuff financially, but maybe you're still a boxer at Amazon. If you try to take a huge risk as the president of Amazon and it fails and people lose their jobs, there's a huge risk factor there that not only affects your life, but the lives of the people that are working underneath you. And that's why in this country, these rich people should actually be acknowledged and praised for their actions and their courage to go and pursue these types of dreams, instead of being criticized by people like this guy, who's obviously, he's building his own thing, for crying out loud. He has his own little network thing that's going on off of the Young Turks. He's putting together his videos. No one's capping his talent ability, if there is any talent there to cap at all. But he's wrong on all fronts here when it comes to rich people and intergenerational wealth. Again, Trump's father gave him a loan. But with that loan, Trump was able to do something, okay? He didn't fail. If he had failed, you wouldn't be hearing anything about this right now. So let's go on.
And for every Kylie, there are 500 fail sons like this rotund weirdo Coke nephew who got a ginormous tax cut recently.
My father said to me, Wyatt, you can do whatever you want to in life, but just make sure you do it well and you do it with passion.
Seems very similar to what Kylie said.
I knew I was passionate about makeup, but I didn't know I could have fun every day doing my job.
Isn't that the American dream? I mean, it's one thing to have a success in your job, but you know, there's a lot of successful people out there that end up committing suicide, for crying out loud. The suicide rates are enormous in the world right now, but specifically in the United States. The dream in America is not only to have your own opportunity with a job, but to also be happy in your job. I happen to be very blessed with the job I currently have, where I can work a 16-hour day and feel like it's a 6-hour day sometimes, because I love doing my job and I love the kind of income that I get from it and everything. I'm blessed in every kind of way to be able to provide for my family and also have fun doing it. But let's take a step back for a second, because now we're going back for Hassan to actually bash some more people. Classic example, he's going after the Koch brothers again. In this case, one of their nephews. And what does he say about him? He's a rotund individual. Once again, the liberal mentality is to demean people, go after their personality, go after their family history, and go after their looks. The same people that are talking about not bullying other people and being advocates for those that are bullied are the ones that use the tactics of demeaning people's looks in order to make their point. We're talking economics here. Instead, they're throwing out demeaning terms about the people themselves. This guy has a little weight to him. He wasn't big or anything, and who the heck cares? The guy has intergenerational wealth. How the heck is that affecting Hassan? Doesn't make any sense. But because he's fat and one of the Koch brothers, then you have to bash him for it. Doesn't make any sense. Once again, let's go back. Piker again.
Yeah, life is pretty fun when your family's worth millions of dollars. Now compare this to almost everyone else's reality. Crippled by student loan debt, parents having a hard time paying off the mortgage on the house they bought, terrified of getting seriously ill or even mildly sick because you might lose your job and therefore your health insurance. Having no health insurance. These are the realities that most Americans face every day. And instead of doing anything to unskew this wildly unfair system, we actually make it worse by passing tax cuts that allow our corporate overlords to hoard even more of that wealth and eliminate estate taxes so they can pass even more of it on to their self-made offspring.
Oh my gosh, my head's going to explode. This is absolutely ridiculous. So, right off the bat, one of the responses that he has to the Koch brothers is, it must be nice if having millions of dollars from your family. Well, what the heck are you doing? Get off your ass and go out there and do something about it. You can have the ability to make money. One of the things that socialists always say in regards to making money in America, the Obamas used it themselves as well, is that wealth in this country or money in this country is like a pie, and you have to share that pie with people. No, socialism and communism is a pie, because there's only so much that you can give out to each of the people in that country, and in order to do so, you have to split that pie evenly. Actually, it's not even communism. Communism will take half the pie and split the rest evenly amongst everyone else, because the people at the top are the ones that actually make out and survive the longest in those types of systems. Here's what capitalism is. Capitalism is the freaking pie shop. You have the opportunity to go out there and make a business of your own. So in America, the American economy is the ability to pump out pie after pie after pie after pie. You have the ability to go out there and make your own business, to make your own wealth, that it doesn't have to be divvied up amongst people. Life in America isn't a pie. You go out, you get the ingredients, and you make your own freaking pie. That's what the difference is between this system and any other system in any other country out there. We are the pie shop. They have to divvy up their own pie out there in the other countries. Now, let's move on a little bit further, okay? He's talking about how we have to worry about student loans and healthcare and everything. Who chose to take out the student loan? Okay? If you chose to go after that degree, that's the risk that you're taking, just like any business risk, coincidentally or ironically enough. If you're choosing to go after that, you better hope that you get a job in that arena. And if you get a job in that arena, you better hope that you looked into what that kind of job is going to pay off those student loans that you accumulated along the way. In some cases, you need a degree from a university or something. In a lot of cases with the trade jobs nowadays, you actually don't need a degree. But you know what would be fantastic if we actually got back to an opportunity where people did apprenticeships under studies with people to actually get jobs, because you actually learn more about the job being on the job and studying under a person that's a professional under it than going to school for 4+ years, having to take all these other courses that have nothing to do with your job in order to be what they call a well-rounded individual. That things that never play out into your job, but you know what it's there for? To keep you in school longer and to make you pay more. And why do you pay more? Because there's subsidies to universities. And why are there subsidies to universities? Because the government feels that everybody needs to go to university, and the universities are looking for handouts all the time. And when governments give subsidies to universities, the universities feel the opportunity through student loans and everything that are given out by the government to actually increase their tuition rates, because the student loans are out there from the government, so they have the ability to raise those. So if you really want to be pissed off about tuition rates and what you're paying for schools and everything, you should be pissed off at the government's overreach into our education and higher education system for that. Now, trade schools, stuff like that. Like I said, you don't need a degree to do that. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that Mike Rowe would actually tell you, as he's testified in front of Congress multiple times on, is that the trade jobs that are out there right now are in high demand because there's not many people going into them. We have a push from society and education at large to go for 4-year degrees and everything and go after white-collar jobs instead of blue-collar jobs, because that's where you're supposed to be. That's the mentality of our culture, is to go after white-collar jobs. In the meantime, by that push, you're actually telling people not to go for blue-collar jobs. As there's more and more doctors and nurses and everything that get into the system and overload the system, having trouble finding jobs, what you actually have is shortage of electricians and plumbers and everything else that are now in such high demand and stretched so thin with their daily jobs. There's only so many hours in the day that they get to increase their rates because there's not much competition out there to go against them, and you have plumbers that are making as much as doctors. Why is that being talked about? That's exactly what Mike Rowe would tell you all the time, is that we have to push for more spread out opportunity within all the jobs that are offered here in America. Healthcare. Before I get off this portion of the video completely, in regards to healthcare, the basic human right to healthcare and what we have to pay for healthcare, I have another idea I have another point to make to Hassan here. You have that access to healthcare. Yes, in the end, you may end up paying for it, but at no point in time is payment a barrier to actually receiving healthcare. If you go after it and pursue it and need that healthcare, you will get it. You might end up in debt afterwards, but you will get that health care. I'm sick of that being an excuse. I have never seen nor heard from anyone stepping over bodies that are waiting outside the hospital, gasping for air like they're in the desert going after a drink of water, looking for, oh, I just need to get in there in the ER. They're not letting me in. I'm dying out here. They're not giving me care. It's not happening. You get the care. The care is there. You end up paying for it in the end. Now, if you want to talk about payments in the healthcare system, we can also go after that. Again, we don't have a healthcare problem in America. We have an insurance problem in America. And again, because of the influence of government on these industries, government has always been the central problem in regards to payments and finances with these systems. If the government would allow interstate competition between the insurance companies, even within their own companies, you know, Aetna or Blue Shield, Blue Cross Blue Shield, or whatever it is, in Pennsylvania, if they were allowed to compete against Blue Cross Blue Shield over in New Jersey, and the rates were starting to go back and forth, and you could shop that competition, by the way, lending back to the free market principles of capitalism, would allow them to compete over you as a consumer to lower the prices of those healthcare plans. We can do that. We can do tort reform. If you're not familiar with tort reform, it's the ability to sue a hospital for negligence that's unfettered. If you want to talk about unfettered, you forget to do a specific test, they can sue you for millions. Well, that's why it costs so much to actually get tests done. Imagine in my situation a couple years ago when I had cancer, I had to go in and go through every single test under the sun in one day. I had an EKG, an ultrasound, a CAT scan, a PET scan, blood tests, and just short of going into an MRI, okay? Why did they have to do that many tests to find the problem when they knew if it was cancer related, that a PET scan would have been the end-all solution and probably would have found it right off the bat if they sent me into that machine? Because if they miss anything under any of these other tests, they're going to get sued. Or at least that's the mentality with anyone, right? So they have to run every single test under the sun with individuals in hopes that they don't miss anything out of the fear that they're going to be sued. These are the types of things that we need to put caps on. You should only be able to sue for so much, or it has to be a worth there in regards to what happens to you in a hospital due to negligence or a mistake or something like that. Negligence may be one thing, mistakes are completely different. Okay, if something's missed on a test or overlooked or something like that, I can understand wanting a value on that, but at the same time, that ability to go after the hospital is exactly why the rates have to increase for everything and why insurance has to pay more money. Don't be mad at the healthcare system. If you want to funnel your anger, funnel it towards the government that has put in policies into place that increase all of these rates on everything that we do in our daily lives. Along with that, before I go on with Piker, he was talking about families having intergenerational wealth and how it must be fun to do all that kind of stuff. That sounds awfully familiar to what someone else said. So let's take a look at this from a recent speech given in South Africa.
Oh, I'm actually surprised by how much money I got. And let me tell you something. I don't have half as much as most of these folks, or a tenth or 100th. There's only so much you can eat. There's only so big a house you can have. There's only so many nice trips you can take. I mean, it's enough. You don't have to take a vow of poverty just to say, well, let me help out a few of the other folks. Let me look at that child out there who doesn't have enough to eat or needs some school fees. Let me help him out. I'll pay a little more in taxes. It's okay. I can afford it. I mean, it shows a poverty of ambition to just want to take more and more and more. Instead of saying, well, I've got so much, who can I help? How can I give more and more and more?
I'm going to be jumping around a little bit here because I think Obama is way off the mark with this. And what we actually see is when you decrease taxes, you actually see an increase in charities. Charitable donations from the U.S. is actually astronomical compared to any other country that's out there because we have this wealth building system and generous hearts. Christian organizations, churches, members, people that are even non-religious in this country that donate to charities outrank countries when it comes to donations for things. And the reason why we have the ability to do that is because we have more money in our pockets and we feel the opportunity to give back to those that are less fortunate. What we don't like is being held hostage and that money taken directly out of our pocket by the government and being told that we have to give to certain things. So the left is always pissed off that our money goes to war efforts. The right is always pissed off that the money is going to abortion clinics and killing of babies at Planned Parenthood and everything that's being funded. Instead, allow us to keep our money and donate where we want to. I give to military organizations. We give to OUR, Operation Underground Railroad, to go out and save kids that are in sex trafficking rings and take down the criminals that are actually doing it, the traffickers themselves. There's people that give to aid organizations and everything. What happened in Haiti a couple years ago with the earthquake, the people of the United States gave much more money than the actual U.S. government did to help relief efforts down in Haiti, including people actually going down there on their own dime to help out in the relief efforts of rescuing people under the rubble and everything. That's what happens when you give more money back to the people of the money that we freaking earned. That's the one thing that's never talked about. You talk about Hassan and Obama here keep on coming with this notion that because we live in America, that money, it belongs to the government. That's not the case at all. That money belongs to us, we the people, and we have the opportunity to give that freely to wherever we feel it's best used. The opportunity is on where it's best able to be used. Intergenerational wealth. Let's go back to that topic for a second. First of all, okay, we just showed the video of Obama and everything. He's completely wrong. There's only so many houses you can buy. There's only so many vacations you can go on. There's only so much food that you can eat. At some point, he said it before, at some point you've made enough money. He's surprised that he's made so much money coming out as a president. Yeah, that's part of the problem of the government, okay? We have come from a time of John Adams, who went to Congress in Philadelphia, did his time as a politician, and then freely returned back to being a farmer after his time was up, and doing his job without any type of pension or retirement plan from the government, where the taxpayers were actually paying him to go off and do his own thing and for his past services. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what our people get paid for working in the government and then retiring after so many years. And you have also people like John McCain and Lindsey Graham that have been in there for years destroying our system from the inside, exactly why we need term limits and everything. Barbara Boxer, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, thank God he's gone. The point is this: when you're actually looking at intergenerational wealth, the one thing that Hassan brought up in his last video clip there is that then you have these corporate cronies and everything taking all this money for intergenerational wealth and trying to do away with the estate tax and hoarding even more of their own money down to their family members and everything. Who cares? If you don't understand what the estate tax is if you make over a certain amount, once you die, you have to give half of that money to the government. Why? It doesn't make any freaking sense. Let's take you step by step through this, okay? When you earn $1 working, that dollar is taxed, okay, by the government. Just for the opportunity to work in the United States, God bless you, you get to pay taxes on that dollar that you earned. You take what's left of that dollar, you go to the store, or you pay any type of thing, okay? Let's use the store as an example for products. You go and you buy a product, okay? That product is gonna have a sales tax on it. You just got taxed again on that dollar. Now you have a product with that money that you just spent on that, okay? And when you die, half of that and everything else that you have is supposed to be taxed again. That's at least 3 taxes, for crying out loud. And I can tell you there's a couple other systems in there, including the stock market and some other things, where everything gets taxed again, IRAs and stuff like that. You are taxed at least 3 times before you're able to give what's little left to your kids. And that is your freaking right to be able to give that money to your kids. It's your money that you earned. It's not the government's. They didn't do anything except for sit back and make your life freaking miserable with all the types of policies and red tape and everything that they surround everybody else with throughout their lives just to get through that retirement age. If you even make it that far before having a heart attack like I'm about to right now talking about this stupid crap, if you even get that far to be able to retire, to be able to enjoy that and pass along a little bit of something, even if it's millions of dollars to your kids, that is your God-given right, for crying out loud. It doesn't have anything to do with government. They shouldn't be getting their share. Who the heck are you, Hassan, to take that and use it as an example of what the government should be taking from people? They didn't earn it. What is the government to you? What does it matter to you if those people are able to pass on money? How does that affect your everyday life at all? Just because you have a rich neighbor, just because there's someone on the other side of the country that's making millions of dollars more than you while you sit with your hemp necklace and tie-dye shirt and everything, who cares? Because they have more money? Tell me, make me a list. Put a list down of how that affects you. You know what it does? It affects you emotionally because you're a little crybaby that's looking at this and feels that the system is unfair because you weren't able to achieve that type of level of a success. And if under your type of rules, if you wanted to move to a socialist system, instead of promoting a healthiness at the bottom and propping up the few at the bottom that are in poverty and giving opportunity, which our capitalist system does, even the poorest in our country are better off than the rich in some of the other countries. And you know why? Because there's opportunity there, okay? If you go to a socialist country, you're not promoting or giving any avenue for success to the people at the bottom. What you're doing is capping the people at the top. Okay? And when you cap people at the top from reaching certain success levels, what you're in essence doing is promoting a laziness. Because if the people at the top keep on working and pumping out money into the economy to promote the circumvention of that money into the bottom to prop up the few at the bottom, eventually there gets to be a point where the people at the top are like, why am I working so hard? Why am I killing myself for the people at the bottom when they're not doing anything? They're sitting around, they're collecting my money that I'm freaking earning here in order to prop them up and make us equal because I'm pressed up against a ceiling here in this type of system, and they're at the bottom riding that little wave of water up to where I'm at. But I'm the one that's working here, right? So in our system, you're split into certain classes, lower class, middle class, and upper class and everything. But there's no effect of that, what they're doing on your life. If anything, the people in the upper class are providing jobs to the lower class and middle class, obviously. And there's opportunities in the lower class to be out on the street, take some junk out of a junkyard, create a widget, and become a multimillionaire. You can't do that in a socialist country. And you don't see the types of innovations that come out of America coming from any of these other countries. You just don't see that type of Elon Musk coming out of Venezuela. You don't. That was a production nation. That's the difference between those nations, is they're producers of fossil fuels and stuff like that, which liberals hate too. So what the heck are you propping up anyway in regards to a socialist system? It doesn't make any sense. By the way, going back to this, Sue said, one of my children was upset about the wealthy and how they all keep their wealth by passing it down into the family. I said, hey, good to know. I will not leave you a dime so you can make it up on your own work ethic. Amen. Okay, let's go on with Hassan here.
We can ease the pain and suffering and improve everyone's quality of life if we only get involved and change the current system that we're under. Those at the top are securing ever more wealth and power while providing the rest of us with escapist consumerism and the fallacy of choice over what little remains, leading us to believe that the system is fair and balanced.
Again, this is a fallacy in his argument. We're not fighting over crumbs here at the bottom. You have the ability to go out and make a future for yourself, okay? There's a vast ocean of opportunity. All you have to do is go in with your own bucket and pick up some of that opportunity. Those that choose not to do so are doing so at their own detriment. They're choosing not to succeed. And yes, there are failures along the way and everything. You can try again and fail every single time. But you know what? If you stop trying, you can't succeed at all at anything, okay? If you don't try, there's no opportunity to succeed in what you're doing. Now, in regards to fighting over the crumbs and everything, we just went over the example of that. It doesn't make any sense. We are the pie-making factory, not taking from the same pie like this guy would have you believe that we're doing. To that point, this is according to Forbes magazine, by the way. The headline is, Astonishing Numbers. America's poor still live better than most of the rest of humanity. It says, look a little deeper, a little closer in relation to other countries. We're often told that to be poor in the U.S. is much worse than being poor in the social democracies of Europe. And the bottom 10% in the U.S. are indeed worse off than the bottom 10% in Sweden. But they're better off than the bottom 10% in Germany or France, places where we are told that there is indeed that social democracy. Maybe there's something for this capitalism red in tooth and claw then, given that it does seem to improve the lives of the poor. Take another look as well. We know that Russia is where bloated plutocrats loot everything from the country. And yet the bottom 10% in the U.S. have, by this measure at least, better lives than the top 10% in Russia and the top 10% in Portugal, where this guy lives, and Mexico. I think we really might have to do some thinking about what is indeed the best system for the poor. Maybe it really is to let rip with capitalism, allow the inequity to grow, but make the poor richer at the same time, as a question. Then there's this rather old one. It comes from the EPI's State of Working America report, 2004 vintage, I seem to recall. This is now purely economic numbers, nothing about civic engagement and all the rest. It's after all taxes and benefits. It uses PPP, so we have adjusted for price differences between countries, and it's incomes of the top 10% and bottom 10% compared to the U.S. median income. And we see very much the same story as we do at the top. The U.S. is a much more unequal place than any other countries. But notice that also that we're told that the U.S. bottom 10% have a living standard very similar to those of Finland and Denmark. You know, those icy social democracies where they care more about the poor. So again, this guy is completely wrong. He's trying to compare us to these other countries that we're supposed to imitate, again, based on numbers that could never equal the type of social experiment that we would have to perform over here. 5 million as opposed to like 300 million or 600 million. I forget what our population is. Forgive me. I don't have that stat offhand. But you can't do those types of things in our country. Let's go on with more from Hassan.
Thinking that this is the best possible system that we could have. It doesn't have to be like this, everybody. Stop viewing capitalism as a dogma and don't be afraid to question its inefficacy.
So what he says here, I actually agree with. But here's the problem. He's not seeing it the way I'm seeing it. I have never met anyone that said capitalism and our way of our economy is fair. It's the best system out there. Or no, I'm sorry. It's the best system we could ever put into place. That's not true. It is the best system out there. We have raised more out of poverty using the capitalist system than any other country has in total between all of them. Capitalism has the opportunity to raise the poor out of their situation and make them millionaires, okay? Great example. Go watch The Pursuit of Happiness, okay? And what happened with that, Chris Gardner is his name, okay? Go watch his story and see how he was towards the bottom, hit rock bottom, and was able to pick himself up after living in the bathrooms of the subway and everything, trying to get while taking care of his son, to be a multimillionaire. Okay? If you think it's not possible in this country because people like Obama are telling you that, look at Chris Gardner. Black guy, by the way, and one of my personal heroes. I always bring him up as a personal hero of mine. As far as inefficacies and failures in our system, yes, capitalism has its faults, and we should recognize those faults, but we should look to triage those faults in a sense, okay? There's always going to be problems with any economic system that you enter. I just happen to believe and feel, based on statistics and facts, stacks, as you can obviously tell, I just made up a new word for, that we have a better system and more opportunity and less problems than any other economic system that's out there right now. Can we fix those problems? Yes. Okay. Yes, there are examples of socialist policies that we use here in the United States, like Obamacare, for example. There's little things here and there that create what you would consider a failing capitalist system. And my analogy for that is always, if capitalism is a boxer that goes into the ring and you start putting in socialist policies and he's like the best fighter, he's the top of the class, undefeated and everything, and you start introducing socialist policies, that's like taking the boxer's strong hand or strong arm, okay, and tying it behind his back and asking him to go into the fight with the weaker arm, okay, and fight the fight with his weaker arm. And then when he gets defeated, go, see? Capitalism doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. Why would we throw in a fighter like this when he's failing? Well, that's because of the policies and red tape that you have wrapped around this guy, for crying out loud, or in this case, the capitalist system. Let's go on. Piker has a little bit more to say.
This shouldn't scare you. Plenty of countries we look up to do it well. The biggest problem with monarchies was, and is, Saudi Arabia, that wealth and power accumulated at the top and so little of it trickled down to the masses. Capitalism has given us a rigged system where the 3 richest people in the country have more wealth than the bottom 50%.
Who cares? I've said this 3 times now throughout this guy's video. Who cares? The top 3 people in the country have more than the bottom 50%? What does it matter? Who cares? The people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Elon Musk and everything, they are beyond wealthy, okay? The guy that owns Bellows, I think, or whatever his name is, that owns Amazon. These guys are providing jobs to those people that fall in the bottom 50%. And you can be upset that they fall into the bottom 50%, but guess what? What they're not talking about is that the top 5% pays 50% of the taxes in this country. The top 10 or 15% pay 75% of the taxes in the country. You keep on going down. You know what the bottom 50% of this country pays? 3% of the total taxes in this country. Total income taxes, okay? So it goes both ways. Okay, wealth generated versus the taxes that they actually have to end up paying. So there's inequities within the tax system too. If you truly wanted a fair system according to your socialist tendencies with everything, we would implement what we call a fair tax. Or I'm sorry, no, a fair tax is subjective. A flat tax is actually fair. A flat tax would be everyone pays 10 or 15% right across the board. That way, if you're making $10, you're paying $1. If you're making $150, you're paying $15. Something like that, yeah. So the flat tax is the most fair because even the rich are still paying more money than those at the bottom, but everybody's contributing an equal portion of what they make to the system. That's what needs to be implemented in this country, along with term limits and everything to help stop everyone from staying in there too long and implementing another policy then. I don't know if there was anything else I wanted to say about that. Let's go on.
That's the system that Kylie Jenner is benefiting from. But let's not kid ourselves that she's any more self-made than the heirs of the Walmart billions are, or the Koch brothers are, and for sake, any more than Donald Trump is. The question is, how much longer are the rest of us going to stand by and allow our livelihoods and freedoms, like the freedom to receive healthcare and the freedom to not spend our entire lives in debt, to slowly erode as those at the top grab more and more of the shrinking number of crumbs that the rest of us are spending our lives scrambling for?
The freedom not to live your life in debt? What the hell is he talking about? That doesn't even make sense. So you should be allowed to go out and spend yourself into debt on stupid stuff and surround yourself with material items, which is exactly what you were talking about and complaining about in the one of the previous clips I showed, where you're talking about consumerism and the false choices and everything. You're allowed to spend yourself into debt, and then what? You have the right for the government to bail you out because you made stupid choices? That doesn't make any sense. And along with the right to health care, the right to the access to health care, you have that right. Okay? It's there. You have the access to health care, so you're wrong on all fronts. But what was the first thing that he said right before all that stuff? He said, how long are we going to idly stand by and allow these types of freedoms to be disintegrated by the rich? That sounds like a threat to me. It sounds like you're calling for riot mobs and activity that's unbecoming to go after the rich people in this country and go after them for their wealth and actively take it from them. That sounds like a mob mentality with pitchforks and torches. That sounds scary to me. And if that's what you're promoting is a violent reaction to people making more than you that still doesn't affect you at all, you're a loser. You're all around a loser. In this whole video, I've just laid out a bunch of reasons why you have made a mockery of your own argument. Your horrible argument at that. So that was Hassan from the Young Turks. And it's just incredible that we actually have people that listen to fools like this, spread their stuff on social media and think that they're actually making a point, when in actuality, you're kind of making an ass of yourself. All right, so listen, that was my main topic for tonight. I appreciate everybody tuning in and everything. If you're watching, again, I appreciate it on Facebook Live. Tune in on weekdays, usually Thursdays at 9:30 p.m. And you can watch us live. Just go to the Facebook page, to Generation Y Conservative, hit like, and then hit get notifications so you know when we go live. It'll actually notify you. And then also find us on YouTube, subscribe to the Generation Y Conservative, hit the bell for notifications when we publish videos. Find us on Twitter at Gen Y Conservative without the E on the end. If you're watching right now, all that information is right down at the bottom there. Hey, if you were watching and commenting and everything along with us, hit like and share on the video on Facebook as well. That really helps out with getting the message out there for people with similar mindsets, or maybe a liberal or two will jump in and actually have something to argue about. Also, if you're interested in listening to the audio-only version of the podcast, don't forget that you can tune in on Sundays from 3 to 6 p.m. on KLRN Internet Radio, where they have also put me on to iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Google Play. In the meantime, I'm glad that you came out and joined us this week. I will see you next week. Have a great night, and God bless America.